And I still don't see, normally there's a little thing that you can, does anyone know how to tag him?
If you right click,
Pin him.
nothing comes up.
No, don't see that. Okay, Alex, sorry. Thank you for waiting. We were so long. And welcome to Utah Valley University. It is a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to meet you. You and I have been sort of chatting over the years via Dave Andersen, your Hampshire friend, which, we also had Greg Butler a couple of years ago. Did you know Greg Butler from Hampshire?
I don't think I did.
Okay, well, those are my two friends of my brother's connections that I've been able to use on CineSkype. Thank you for these great movies. Here, I'll adjust me so you can see me a little better. We've just watched The Infiltrators, and most of the people in here have also watched several other films. They watched Las Martas and they watched Sleep Dealer. I think also the Sundance Labs did a thing with you guys with a like a masterclass sort of thing. I think most of them watched as well. So they've been sucking from your brain. And so let's see. There's a big number here. You guys want to let them know how you like the film?
Yeah. Oh, how cool. Well,
have around a good crowd. I would guess there's probably like 60 people in there. So I'm going to ask some questions, and then they're going to kind of wander down and ask just like this. My first question is about this movie, and that is really just because it's a documentary and it's a narrative, and there's a lot of sort of verite following the team around. And I'm just curious about, when did it become a hybrid? Was it always intended to be that? How did that sort of element of it evolve?
sure. Well, hey, number one, just Professor Andersen or Duane, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for your patience and perseverance over the years and the dialogue. I'm really just happy to be here. Thank you for reaching out and sending my greetings to your brother. And thank you all students for for dialing in. I don't know if you have to as part of a class or if you're here voluntarily, but any which way, thank you for engaging with the work. And so this film, The Infiltrators, was a really unusual project in that it started as, originally I thought it was going to be a short film. I had seen in the news that these undocumented youth were doing these kind of historic actions of risking arrest and risking deportation as part of these acts of political protest. And I just wanted to understand, as a person from a family that has undocumented people in the family, I'm used to folks like that sort of staying in the shadows, and these young leaders coming out, getting arrested, taking these risks. I wanted to understand it. And so I thought I'd make a short film. And as I started to edit, and I filmed that, and I started to edit, the group kept evolving and doing more and more radical things, like you see kind of in the history section of the film. And so I went along, and then Cristina joined me, kind of filming with them as they were improvising and ultimately leading them to this really kind of epic action of the infiltration of the Broward Detention Center. We filmed what you see in the film, the observational material with the support team and all that. Then we kept filming with them afterwards. We didn't know where the story would be because it was very dynamic. And this is an interesting, conundrum of documentary, is that reality doesn't have beginnings and ends. It's a flow that we're in. And but you have to find that beginning, middle, and end. And so it was only after years after the actions, when we kind of returned to the footage and identified this particular story as being epic and interesting and important, but we realized we'd only filmed half of it, the outside half. And but we loved the story, and we felt determined to tell it. And so we weren't sure if we maybe would use animation, or maybe we would just use testimony. We talked to a lot of the folks who had been detained inside, and we thought maybe just their testimony could let us know what happened inside. But ultimately, it was kind of being inspired by the activists themselves, who you see how they use wardrobe, hair, makeup, and performance as part of their actions. And so we sort of pivoted towards this idea of using performance to recreate the part of the story we could not see, which is primarily inside of detention. And we had this idea of, well, what would it be like if you met a character as their real self in the sort of documentary form, and then they got taken away by the authorities and put in this box that was almost like another dimension, and they'd be represented by an actor, and they'd even pick up the telephone in that dimension and call reality left on the outside and kind of cross-cut these two formats. And we realized we'd never seen a film like that. And to me, these films take 5 years, 7 years, sometimes 10 years to make. They take a long time. And to me, if we can make a film that does something that's never been done before, I'm feeling good. You know, so I'd say at least it might not be, the film might not be great, but if it's at least breaking some new ground, that's an exciting place to be. And so it was really like, that was the process. It was sort of one step at a time, being led by the subject matter and the subjects themselves, their creativity, responding to it as artists, that led us into this weird sort of uncharted territory of not only mixing performance and documentary, which many films have done, but to me, it was really that fact of having the two timelines next to each other and simultaneously running simultaneous and cross-cutting, and them talking across that formal divide. So all of that was super exciting and was kind of, but discovered sort of along the way.
I thought it was brilliantly done. The question I had then to follow up from that answer is about like sustaining it. Because if you're working for years and years and years on a documentary, I know from personal experience, sometimes you're financed, but a lot of times you're just kind of going and just doing. And then suddenly you had to create this sort of narrative element, which is so cost heavy. So sort of what was your approach as far as that side of that goes?
Yeah. So the, there's two answers to that question. One is regarding the sort of film itself. And in a very simple kind of reduced lay of the land, the first half of the film was all funded by grants. Grants from foundations, some of them interested in immigration reform and immigration activism, some of them interested in documentary filmmaking. But it was grant money that allowed us to do the documentary work, the filming and the editing, and ultimately even the structuring of the edit and the writing of the screenplay, and all of that was done on grant money. But then to your point, like once you turn towards actors and a set and extras and recreating a detention center and wardrobe and all, you can't really do it piecemeal anymore. You can't get, oh, now we have $10,000, we'll do that for 2 days, let everybody go, and then 3 months later do another 2 days. No, you got to do all that production at once. And we ended up shooting, I believe it was, oh gosh, I usually know this off the top of my head, but I'm going to say it. I think it was 2.5 weeks or something. Was it the fiction shoot? And we needed a chunk of money, to pay. It was ultimately something like $400,000 to shoot all the fiction elements. And we could never find a grant of that amount. And so we pivoted towards equity, basically an investor who put money in at that stage of the project. It was the producers of the film that you see in the credits there, Chicago Media Project. And they just, in a really bold and generous way, stepped up and, made that investment in the film. But it's like an interesting model because the film is visually hybrid. Financially and in a sort of business term, it was also hybrid. Foundations for the first half and then equity investment for the second half. Yeah, and then there's the question of how do you survive over 7 years while doing anything? And, that's just these kinds of like guest teaching and selling tapes and grants and commissions and just hustling, hustling, hustling.
So, I do have a lot of questions, but I want to open up for these guys. If you guys have a question coming, just kind of line up here, all right? I'm going to ask my last one here. And it's regarding, I just want to get an update because I know based on, well, I'm losing his name in my head. So,
Claudia?
yeah. Claudio, sorry. Yeah, Claudio. So I know from your website that, can you tell us a little bit about this story? Because I don't know, I doubt other people know this.
Sure. Well, I mean, it was very, this whole thing was so intense and extraordinary. But the story that the film tells that we wanted to tell was that undocumented folks have built power for themselves and we're engaging in acts of sort of self-defense and creating political power. And that's what you see happening in the film. And when we screened the film in 2019, it was now under the Trump administration. And that was a message that I don't think they liked very much. And a few weeks after the film premiered, they detained Claudio, who had been in this country by that point 20 years. He'd been here for 20 years with his wife and his 2 kids, and now a grandchild that had just been born. And after the film premiered, ICE came and detained Claudio, and the film had just won 2 awards at the Sundance Film Festival. All of us were in a sort of dream state of delight. It was so, it was such it was just a major effort, and it was a great launch for this project. And then ICE came and just chopped the knees out from underneath it, and it was like a nightmare. And he was in a detention center again, as the film was going to like South by Southwest and other festivals. And we rallied with the film community, the Sundance Institute, the International Documentary Association, everybody we could find, trying to call politicians to get him out of detention and back to his family. We failed, and the Trump administration deported him and sent him to Argentina, where he's from. He was there for nearly 2 years, including the beginning of the pandemic, it was just so painful that he wasn't able to be with his family through that time. And all of us just feeling terrible feelings of responsibility. And it was really like the whole purpose of the film had turned upside down. After the Biden administration took office, we, along with some advocates, activists, and others, were able to find a way to bring him back. And so he came back through a process known as humanitarian parole. And so in summer of 2021, he was reunited with his children and his grandkids, and he's back in the country now. And the immigration system is so messed up. He doesn't really have a firm status yet, but his son is on path to become a citizen through marriage, and so hopefully his son can hold on to him, and hopefully there's some kind of reform or something that lets him stay in a more stable way. But he's back finally with his family, and he attended film screenings here shortly after his return, and it was just such a incredible, wonderful relief. And yeah, so that's the sort of short version, but it was a very intense saga after the premiere of the film.
Well, thank you so much. There's a line here. So you guys coming up, tell them your name and kind of where you are in school. I think that'd be a good way to do that.
Hey, Alex. My name is Brandon. I am a junior and I'm an editor. So my question kind of has more to do with the post-production side of things. I'm always impressed when a filmmaker can create tension without the aid of music. I noticed a couple of instances in the film where you just left the score out and just left it quiet. And so I was just curious, like, what was that like when you were editing? What went into those decisions of when to use the score, when to leave it out? And yeah, what was that like?
What a great question. You know, the I'm pretty I've got a quick trigger finger on the music. I think I put too much in. I tend to put too much in, and I, I think I probably over rely on it. And so, you know, and it's been a little while since I've watched the film with a detailed sense. But I mean, I really think it's like this kind of thing that for me, I don't know exactly how to describe it beyond um, the kind of magic of the medium and feeling it one way, feeling it another way, and kind of I call it kind of playing the accordion, where you know you go this way and you're like, I'm gonna it needs music, and you put the music in, you're like, oh, it's got too much music, and you take it out, oh, now it's too empty, and you kind of just it's really just working it back and forth. And I just think, you know, watching it, especially with audiences, I'm a deep believer through the whole process of getting feedback from people. And so we did a lot of like test screenings and screenings with musicians even. I remember feedback I'd got from a musician that was really helpful. So I think it's just, you know, I wish I had a sort of philosophy to share, but I think to me that's like this kind of you know, like throwing a pot on a potter's wheel, or painting. It's sort of like you just kind of feel it, you know, for me. But yeah, so I don't know, but I really appreciate the thought. And you know, I think in general, it's like if you have that tension in the scene, you know, or in a shot, you know, it's like cuts, music, all of that stuff. If the shot is working, if the tension is there organically, you want it to be there, and let it live. And you know, you definitely, if you have that feeling in the footage and in the moment, you don't want to put it again. You don't need things being done twice in film. You know, you want to have the sound adding something that's not there, not reiterating what's already there. You know, so it's just yeah, it's a delicate part of the art, but I appreciate you thinking about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey Alex, my name is Mikey. I'm in the writing section of everything. With you and your wife working together as a team, and you having done Sleep Dealers, and together having done this, a hybrid piece of work, do you feel yourself drawn to the more documentary side of things or the narrative side of things? And when you guys are working together, does one take the reins opposed to the other in a certain context, or how does that all go down?
Yeah, right on, right on. Well, I'm like you, attracted to writing. You know, I really kind of view, I guess, the core of what I do as writing. And so yeah, even when I do documentaries, I always start by writing, like, what is the story I think I'm going to tell? And in documentary, you know, you're going to go out into the field and start filming and be disturbed. That's what you want, is to go out and you have a plan, and your plan gets sort of knocked off balance. But I always am writing, why are you doing this? What is going on? You know, I interview myself and write, but I really believe in the core of filmmaking in any way. I mean, except for perhaps extremely experimental forms where you're just dealing with like color and rhythm. But if you're doing narrative driven work, which documentary typically is, and obviously fiction is, you're writing, you know, and so that's what I'm more drawn to. In terms of working with Cristina, and you know, we had a kid like during this process of making Infiltrators. And so it's part of the appeal of doing this project together, was like, instead of her making a film and going this way and me making a film and going that way, if we had a kid and made one film, we could kind of go like this and delegate. And so like she has more of an appetite for documentaries. So for the interviews, she would go out in the field and do those, and I could stay home and take care of the kid. And then like for the you know, for the script writing part, I was like a little more in that, and she was a little more somewhere else. And so it was really kind of divide and conquer. But a funny part of it, though, we could see it coming as we're heading towards the home stretch in post production. You know, and if you've finished the film ever, you know, that ending is the ending of the process is like do we dissolve out here or dissolve out there? Is the edit 10 frames this way or 15 frames that way? And so we had this system where we delegated, we gave each other 3 toothpicks. And if we ever reached a decision that we just couldn't quickly make together, one of us would just be the tiebreaker. It's like, okay, so you're going to tie break on this one. And I give, she give me a toothpick. So now I have 4 and she only has 2. If she gets a tiebreaker again, now I've got her, she's only got 1 toothpick left. So we tried to do that. It was sort of like a game, but just to kind of keep track of how we would like tie break on really like ultimately those little decisions sort of, they make a difference, but not that much, but there's a billion of them. You know what I mean? So we tried to make a system to collaborate and sort of balance each other out in the decision-making process. But yeah, man, but I wish you good luck with your writing. I wish you had enough time to hear what you all are thinking about, but.
Well, there's a lot more than me, but thank you.
Right on.
Hello, Alex. My name is Dylan. I'm in the cinematography track, and I just want to talk about this film, The Infiltrators. So, like, what was like your biggest struggle of making this film, and what was like a way to overcome it?
Fantastic. Let me think. The biggest struggle was everything I spoke about regarding the aftermath of the film. This was a film where the aftermath was like so unexpected and just really, really heavy and difficult. But I know your question is more about the creative process. And in the creative process, one thing I'll say is that this is, well, here's a couple stories. Like one is when we were pitching the film, we called it a docu-thriller, right? It was trying to call it like, meaning like it's a documentary, but with this sort of thrilling adventure quality to it. And we had an advisor who had worked in Hollywood in screenwriting. And she said, this is not a thriller because a thriller tends to be very isolated and you usually have like, let's say the murderer and the cop, and they're kind of like pursuing each other. And it's isolated and disorienting and suspenseful. She says, what you have is a heist film. A heist film is about a team of people working together to pull off an ambitious plan. And the question is, will they pull off their plan or not? And will they get along or not? Are they going to, it's a heist film. And that was really helpful. And so then we started to craft it as a heist film, meaning, just like I just described. But then when we edited the film together, we realized it lacked point of view. We didn't really have a strong enough main character, and the depiction of the team, it just didn't work to kind of have no point of view, like just to be about a team. It felt like it really still, even though it was a film about a team, it still needed that grounding. And if you think about Ocean's 11, even in the title, Ocean's 11, it's Ocean, Danny Ocean or whatever his name is, the George Clooney character. It's about a team, but it's also about one person. And so in the edit for Infiltrators, we had to pull one person forward. And that obviously is Marco. And the way we pull him forward is with the voiceover and the editing structure, But basically, when we edited the film, we tried to reflect reality. It was a team effort. But in the editing, to get to a more psychological level, to a level that were a little bit more emotional, we had to pull that main character forward. And so we added the voiceover you hear was added very late in the process. And it kind of begins the film and it appears, so it's kind of a grounding element to ground us in one person's point of view and give us that sort of like emotional, psychological touchstone throughout, so that even though it's a story about a team, it's grounded in one person. And so that was like a whole process to realize we had that problem and then solve it. And it was all solved in the edit room, So yeah, anyways, that was a big one.
Thank you so much.
Right on.
Hi, I'm Elsa. I'm a junior in producing, and my question is kind of about like your pre-production process and like especially scheduling and trying to do like the documentary and then the narrative. Those are like very different processes, and so how you kind of balance that to make it into the like very seamless product that it is.
Thanks. Yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, that wasn't it wasn't planned to be this way from the beginning. it would be very interesting to do a film like this, planning it like that from the beginning. But what we had was this bed of verite footage that we'd shot with the activists in the safe house and the preparation and all of that that you see. And then we edited that together. And, one of a person that was working with us who was an undocumented youth herself, she said, this footage is sacred. She said, this footage is sacred. And I don't know if I felt that, but I felt like the footage was very, very special, like of these young people planning this action, and the spirit that's like rebellious and full of laughter and humanity, but also very high stakes and sort of also sad and tragic that this is what people have to do to think about their freedom. And so anyways, we had this like verite footage that felt very important. So we edited that together. That gave us like some islands of story. To connect those islands, we conducted these very long interviews. The main interviews were, like with Claudio was 8 hours, with Mohammed and Vidi and Marco, they were like 10 hours, 12 hours. We did exhaustive interviews, and then use the interviews to create what we call a radio edit. You're really just cutting the sound to lay the story out. We interviewed the detainees who had been in the detention center, of course, the infiltrators, and started to put the story together. So we had these islands, like I'm mentioning, of the verite material connected by little strings of interviews. And with that, we could put together like an hour and 20-minute long telling of the whole story. It's not a movie. It's really just talk, little bits of verite, talk. And then we took those sequences of interviews and used those as inspiration to write a screenplay. And then I like to draw, and so I drew storyboards, and we used our voices. Christina's a woman, I'm a man, so we just dubbed our voices in to connect the bits of documentary material that we had now with these like storyboards. And that's how we started to see the movie as documentary fiction, and intercut and put it up on screen. And we went to like the Sundance Edit Lab and were able to show that version to advisors, like the advisor I mentioned who told us this is a heist film. She watched a version of it with documentaries intercut with my bad drawings. And so this starts to give us like just a methodology to work, because you've got sort of chicken and egg problems with like a documentary cutting into a fiction. You need to have one has to come first. And so we went documentary first, created the script out of there, and mapped it out using storyboards to then create a screenplay, and then go shoot that material and fold it back in. But last thing I say, sorry I'm talking so much, it's so complicated, but after bringing the fiction material back into the documentary edit, we thought it would just be like putting Humpty Dumpty together, because we had it all mapped out. But we found a universe of possibilities. Like, for example, I don't know if you remember the scene where Marco approaches the Border Patrol agent and he starts talking, the actor, but then the documentary audio comes out of his mouth, and so all of that thing about like having them cross-pollinate, we discovered all of that in the edit, and it was so fun and fascinating creatively. So anyways, I'm not sure if I even answered your question, but
That was great. Thank you.
yeah.
Hello, Alex. So my name is Dallin Condi, and I have a question for you. So with the film being finished and complete, what are some of the scenes that you are most proud of with the way they look? Or some of your favorite scenes?
Oh, thanks. We made a decision in the creative process to have the fiction material, the scripted stuff, look very different than the doc. One way to go would have been like to use the same camera on our set that we used in the documentary and use existing light on the set like we did in the documentary. But we worried it would become confusing for the audience about where are they in the documentary or in the recreation. And we didn't want this to be a film that was confusing to people. We didn't want it to, yeah, that wasn't interesting. We wanted to tell the story in a way that the audience understood where they were in the story and that they could kind of trust us as narrators. And so for us, the idea of that the fiction material look kind of different. So you'd just be watching it, be like, I know where I am. Oh, I'm in this fiction world now. I'm out, I'm back in. And so we wanted to have, working with the cinematographer, Lisa Rinsler, who's a master and a genius, and he's like, it's worth studying her work. She's been working in film for, I think, 40 years. But working with her, we said, like, look, if the documentary is handheld, let's have the fiction camera be very controlled. You know, if the documentary camera is, you know, like a sort of video, let's have this one be very cinematic. And so we did a lot of shots, for example, with Steadicam in the scripted world that that looked very special. They're very much like of that world. And some of those are shots I'm really like proud of, and scenes. Like I really love the scene when Claudio and Marco are handing out the little strips of paper in the cafeteria. And there's like a shot that picks up Claudio walking and goes down to the little paper under the table and back up and around. And it's like, it's a long Steadicam shot, but if you watch it, it's all triggered by their eyes, you know, because those long Steadicam shots, they can feel like a show-off shot, or they can feel like, you know, like a camera's doing something fancy, and you don't want that as a filmmaker. You want your camera to move the way your character's mind is thinking. You know, the camera has to follow what the character is thinking and doing, or else the audience is watching a camera trick. And you don't want the audience watching a camera trick. You want the audience connecting to the character. And so if you watch that shot, it's like Claudio walks and he looks down, and then the camera goes down and catches the paper. Then you go up and you see that immigrant, the detainee, is looking at the paper. Then he looks over here, and it's all the eyes triggering the camera moves all around the space. And but it runs for like almost a minute or something, and it moves like that. And so that's a scene I was proud of. You know, I was really happy with that one.
Were there like specific camera movements or angles that you like really wanted to be in this film? So I noticed a lot of it was like the way where you just get glued into like the scene itself. But were there any specific camera movements you're like, oh, I love it when this happens. Can we need to get this in? Can we have that?
Yeah. I mean, there's really a lot of what I'm describing. Like there's the shot when Marco is working with the custodian. Remember, I'm forgetting his name, the Sri Lankan custodian character, and who's going to pass the papers out to Radham on the outside. Yeah, and you get another one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of that. And that again is all, if you watch the camera moves there beat by beat, it's all triggered off of the eyes and off of the action. And it's a long tracking shot, but the camera doesn't move because the camera wants to move. The camera's following eyes and following action. And to me, the idea there is like what these young people did was amazing. Mm-hmm. What they did in reality, to me, was amazing. And I wanted the cinema to be amazing. I wanted the cinema to be these like complicated shots that were like elevated and like an Ocean's 11, as much as we could afford it, as much as we could reach. So there's a kind of like a, you know, there's the artistic idea, which is that the camera should follow what the characters are feeling. But then there was also this idea of let's make an elevated film about these people doing this extraordinary thing. So that was sort of a guiding thing throughout. And again, in Lisa Rinsler, the DP, we had like an incredible collaborator trying to pull all that off, and as well as a Steadicam operator who was amazing.
Right. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. And from an audience perspective, it looked so great. We loved watching it. So thank you.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah.
Feels so short now.
Our camera.
Okay, hello, my name is Amelia and I'm studying cinematography. Throughout watching the movie, I kind of started thinking about how many people you'd have to collaborate with, especially with, you'd have to have a diverse skill set for creating kind of two separate kinds of movies and putting them together. When you pick people to work with, do you lean towards reaching out towards your network and having them work with you, or is it more of a you have people apply and then look for certain qualities, or is there a mix of both?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, building your team is kind of everything, you know. It's a film is a collaborative medium at this level. I mean, I've made films that I think are pretty much not collaborative. Like my first film, we were two people really involved, and you know, so that's collaborative, you know. And you can maybe make a film by yourself, you know. Some of my favorite films are made like that, like a single filmmaker. Like I like the films of George Kuchar, who would shoot by himself and narrate and edit in camera, but make these like beautiful video diaries that are actually really funny and poetic. And so you can make films like by yourself, but generally you don't. You know, generally it's about collaboration. And I don't speak French, but I've heard that you know, that the word for producer in French is the person who does the casting of the crew, which I love that idea that like we're aware of the importance of casting the actors. It's the fabric of the movie, but you cast the crew, you know, that the crew has to be put together with that kind of thoughtfulness. And so to answer your question, the crew on Infiltrators was all kinds of folks. There was you know, one of our team members who started off really as an intern and then became an assistant and then became an associate producer and ended up her journey with us as co-producer on the film, named Sarah Garahan. And she reached out to me because she had seen my work in her film class, and she started working with us, and she was with us for, I think, like 4 years of the process. And you know, and so there's those types of relationships. And then, you know, there are people like the cinematographer, Lisa Rinsler, who I had worked with her before on Sleep Dealer. You know, she shot Sleep Dealer. And I had decided to work with her on Sleep Dealer because I had seen her work with other first-time feature filmmakers. And all of the films I'd seen that she shot, they all looked beautiful and different. There are cinematographers who do beautiful work who I love, like let's say Emmanuel Lubezki. But you see a Lubezki film, you know it's a Lubezki film. It's these wide angles and certain thing that's like his look. Lisa Rinsler, I saw every film look different but beautiful. To me, that meant this was a cinematographer who had a great eye and a great control of light and a great understanding of story, but also a great ear to listen to the director and to shape a film appropriate to the story. And so that was why I decided to work with her. So it's really just countless decisions based on, you know, just what's available to you, the moment you're in. But, you know, I just really try to find people that are good listeners and have a track record of doing great things. And I try to be a good listener and try to find people who want to generate like a really positive and caring creative space together, you know, and do, you know. And last thing I'd say is generally my projects have small amount of money. So usually people are coming because they want to do something with some guts and some politics and some social resonance. And so that's a cool filter. You know, we don't have a ton of money to, so people who come into these films are usually in it for a good reason. So anyways, yeah. Thank you. Good luck with your producing work. Yeah.
Hi there. Oh, just that. I'm a lot taller, so I'm sorry. My name's Carson. It's nice to meet you. I really liked the film. It was really good. I actually really felt like tension watching it. So Like that doesn't happen to me very often while watching movies. So you get that's a big deal. So you get my thumbs up of approval, I guess, even though it's
Hey.
probably not worth anything. Anyway, anyway, so I just wanted to talk about what would you give as like so I was just wondering, what's your best recommendations to first-time filmmakers getting started, finding funding, writing a story? What would you recommend for them to, how do they get their foot and where should they start?
Yeah, I think it's just all about why make a film, you know, and the answer to that is will reveal your path, you know, and there are no wrong answers, you know, and a lot of people might be like, it's a cool career. I love moving images. I love pictures. I love, you know, and I want to like shoot cool shots. And that's a totally reasonable thing to do. In that case, you might like want to study cinematography and try to get to a grad school and do cinematography and really go on that path and maybe become an AC and try to get some work. And like, you know, that's a thing. And that's totally reasonable. You know, for me, it was like, I felt like, you know, this country talks a lot about immigrants and my family's immigrants. And I don't like generally how people get talked about, you know, so I wanted to get into the conversation and speak and intervene, and that like, so then it's like I'm going to be writing and telling stories, and they're not going to be commercial. Like it's like there's not like a big like pro immigrant film industry or something, you know. It's just not, it's not a thing. So I know like, okay, I'm going to be telling stories and I'm going to be kind of on an outsider path. And if you're going to be like an outsider storyteller, then I think the thing to do is to make work. And it can be ugly, it can be cheap, but if it has guts and has something to say, it can cut through, you know. And I look at like Issa Rae, someone like Issa Rae doing like Awkward Black Girl on YouTube, and it's like she's like, I want to do the nerdy. I'm not the cool girl. I'm the black nerdy girl who's always doing the wrong thing, and I'm going to do that. You know, no one does that. You know, so I'm going to do that thing no one else does. And you do it small and doesn't have to look great, but it's the voice, you know, and it's getting it out in the world. It's one thing to have a great voice. It's another thing to have a great idea. You can have both of those and end up with nothing if you don't get it out into the world. So it's like finding what is that balance between crafting your voice, crafting what you know, what you have that's special that you want to say, and then figuring out how you can actually get it out in the world, you know. And because waiting for like the $1 million thing is, you know, might not be the right option if you're going to be an outsider weirdo. Get it out in the world by hook or by crook. Let the voice lead you, and go. You know what I mean? But again, alternately, if you want to like write rom-coms, you know, and it's a great thing to do. Maybe there's a Disney fellowship, you know, you kind of, you know, there's so many ways into the industry. So it's really just about knowing what's in your heart, and then understanding that there's a million paths, you know, and what you want to avoid is your heart saying, oh, I want to become a DP, and you end up on the path that's to be like a writer in a writer's room or something. You want to find harmony between what's in your heart and the strategy you're pursuing, you know, so that you can succeed. But
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, Alex, we got a couple more people standing here. You still up? You still good?
Yeah. I'm good for if it's okay for about another 5 or 7 minutes or something like that. If that's cool, I have my kid. I got to deal with my kid, but
You good?
cool.
Hey, Alex. My name is Mike Roberts. I'm a cinematographer here at UVU. It was a really great film to watch, very engaging visually, and the story was really compelling. My question has to do with lighting, because I was really kind of confused and like enamored with how on earth did you light these 360 steady cam shots and it doesn't look bad. And like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this is really a question for Lisa. There was I'm trying to, I mean, it was just really, these were generally pretty long lights, pre-lights. And there's just no secrets other than, like I mean, hiding the lights wherever you can, and trying to remember if we did anything like walking a light in and then walking it out so the camera can move, but it's just, I think there was no real shortcuts. It was we had a really great AC with a remote follow focus that was cordless, so that she was tracking the focus. It was very fast lens, so we didn't need much light. But I know Lisa was always complaining that it was too flat, and if you see her films in general, she's a real sculptor of light. She's gonna lots of flags and just really lots of cuts, and she really sculpts the light. And I think she found that the Steadicam shot was like kind of like crimping her game, But I'll pass on the note, and yeah. But I wish I had more to offer other than those few comments about it. But yeah. But I think with Steadicam, it's kind of a trade-off, right? It's like you either you're not going to get the highly sculpted light when you're spinning the camera all over the place. So that was it. Yeah. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Jack, sir. I'm in the cinematography track, a junior. And my question is, it's pretty similar along his, but I was just wondering about like the color grading process and how involved you were with that. Because I noticed they all had bright neon orange outfits on. So lighting that, you can get a lot of bleed from it on the set. So like, what was the whole process for eliminating that?
Yeah, thank you. The color grading was it was unfortunate. It's a long story, but it was very rushed. We shot the fiction material in August of 2018. You guys are in Utah. Maybe you know the schedule for the Sundance Festival, but it's in January. So we were editing. We had all the material finally together in September. Very late to be editing a movie. So we edited through September and October to submit to Sundance. And we were accepted by like late November, but we were still at a very rough cut. And so we were adjusting the edit creatively through December, through the Christmas holiday, through New Year. And so the sound was like happening. We'd deliver on a Friday. They would start to build the sound around the edit. We'd keep editing, and then they would deliver again on Friday, and they'd have to adjust it to catch up to where we were. But we were like still finding the film. My point is that the finishing process, sound mix and final color, were totally rushed into that week before the Sundance premiere. And so the color grading, it was just incredibly rushed. I think we did it in 5 days. It's on a DaVinci Resolve. We had a competent operator who, would do, and Lisa's very detail oriented and draw windows around things and pull things up and down and add shadows where they weren't, and just did our best. But there's a lot of things like but it also was, it was rushed. That's all I could say. And, yeah. But luckily, I think the negative looked pretty good, and so we were in a decent starting place. But it was just a lot of like windows around those hot orange uniforms and pull those down and just that kind of stuff.
It looks great for being rushed. But
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
thank you.
Before we say goodbye, we do have one person who's like watching from home. That's a question. Is that all right? Or do you need to rush?
Sure, man. That's fine.
Hey, Maximiliano?
Yeah. Let me turn on my camera. There we go. Hi, Alex. Nice to meet you. I'm Max. I was also wondering during all these questions, what if there was another person, filmmaker, or even a style that you were looking for that is inspired you on your approach on making this docu thriller?
Oh, thanks. Let's I mean, we looked at the body of hybrid films. There are these hybrid films, meaning films that mix documentary and scripted material. And so there's, like on Netflix, there's Wormwood by Errol Morris. There's a film called The Imposter. That's a really creative hybrid film that we watched. There's I Tanya, which is a scripted film, but with some very creative uses of sort of like breaking the fourth wall, and so I'm trying to think, but really we felt like with this idea of the two timelines, the fiction and the doc cross-cutting in this way, it felt like uncharted territory. So, I remember in terms of the Steadicam design, we looked at Gus Van Sant's Elephant. I think that film has these like long Steadicam shots that we looked at, but it was sort of like these diverse references for little pieces of the puzzle. But in terms of looking at a reference for the whole thing, I think we were kind of, again, happy we didn't have one because it felt like this was going to be some weird thing, Yeah. But
Awesome.
that's it.
Great.
Yeah, but thank you so much for watching.
All right, Alex, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope Cristina feels better. And
Yeah.
let's give him a good round of applause.
Oh, well, thank you all. Thank you, Duane. And if I can return, let me know if there's a chance to reconnect or anything. I really enjoyed the dialogue, and the students seemed super bright, engaged. So thank you all, and I wish you all the best of your luck and best of luck in your studies and your careers. But thank you
so much, Alex. Really appreciate it.
Take care.